Welcome to what we're calling our speaker series around transformational fundraising. And where I wanted to focus our conversation today was really around major gifts, big visions, transformational visions, and how those lead to successful fundraising. And what we're known for and what we specialize in doing is working with charities and helping them achieve their transformational vision through large-scale fundraising. So that could be capital campaigns, programmatic campaigns, be major gift fundraising. So that's what we really specialize in. And through that, we've created our methodology of transformational fundraising. What are the key things that you need to pay attention when you're thinking about large-scale fundraising? And there's 7 keys. Matei's here to join us to talk about transformational vision. Matei is an experienced serial entrepreneur in Kitchener-Waterloo, has done a lot of fundraising more from the for-profit side to fund different visions, different companies, is invested in a number of different companies himself. And when I was thinking, if you come to Kitchener-Waterloo, you're surrounded by tech startups. It's the ecosystem, it's the lifeblood of this community. Matei and I were talking about co-working space. There's people sitting beside me who are actually working on, startup endeavors, and they're working on these dreams, these ideas. And I was trying to figure out, well, what's the difference? What are the differences between when they fundraise for an idea, for a vision, versus a charity? And so I thought, Matei, you would join us today, give us some of your background, some of your experience.
I got into the startup world very early on as a co-op student. My last couple of co-op terms were at a startup called Pigstream in Waterloo, which ended up being successful, getting acquired. And that was kind of my first experience in sort of venture-backed startups, which a relatively new thing back then. I started my first company I was a year out of school. So I knew nothing. I had no experience, just kind of dove in and learned on the job as the saying goes. And then I've been doing that since my entire career. I've never really, I always tell people, I don't think I've ever done a resume since probably I was a student. I've always started companies and sold companies and started companies and sold companies and so forth. So, and part of that process, I guess, is you can't really do any of that without the fundraising piece. So I was forced to learn that very early on.
When you presented that vision to somebody who was non-technical, how did you go about, taking something that's very complex and then distilling that down into a way that somebody who is not technical can understand it?
Yeah, no, that was always the challenge. I always looked at what's the outcome for the average person using that technology. And it was like, well, you can get video over the internet. And of course, then people would say, hey, so what? And I don't really care. This was before YouTube and Netflix. So you had to kind of explain, well, how are you getting video today? It's cable and it costs this much, like, $50, $100 a month, depending on the package and all of that. And you have broadcast channels that you have to wait for your programming. So we basically said, well, this enables on demand, this enables, you can view anything. This reduces the cost. This whole concept of free video or very cheap video and anything you want, that was completely unknown at the time. So we had to kind of talk about those things. And because those things weren't realities, not everybody bought into it. So you kind of had to then find people who are a little bit more visionary and a little bit more forward looking to buy into the vision.
I love that you share that, because that's kind of how our philosophy around fundraising is approached, is finding that value alignment, finding that shared vision. There's always somebody who cares about what your charity is doing. It's really finding that connection rather than convincing them that, hey, this is the most important thing. Mm-hmm. It's finding those who are actually resonating, who already share your vision. So I love that you've had that experience, because I think that's what many charities are trying to achieve.
What I found at the end of the day, what gets people to cut checks is sort of 3 things. One, you have the metrics that someone's looking for a particular fund or whatever. So that's the easy part, but that means you're further along. 2, if you're early stage, one important thing is social proof. So somebody they trust told them about you, and they said, this is a really good person or company. That's really important. No matter what people say, everybody wants to always pretend that's not the case, because it's sort of, social proof can also get you into trouble, but it's always important. And the other piece is pattern recognition, which is People love to invest in things. If someone's had a success as a funder, they always look for what fits that pattern. What's another project like that I can invest in? So if you're coming across as a new person and you look like the earlier version of their past success, that's what I call pattern. That's like a pattern match.
Yeah.
So if you're early stage and you get the pattern match and the social proof, those are like two really good things. You have a really good chance. And when I approach an organization, I like to look at their funding history of the last 2 years, because that tells me what's clearing the bar, what type of projects, which space is it in, what type of entrepreneurs and relationships, all that stuff. So history, I like to really, find funders who are experts in the area that I'm working in. So whether that's a technology or a business field or whatever, I want them to be able to add value. And it's a lot easier to have shared vision if you sort of are in that, speaking the same language in the same type of, and also you're more likely to find that pattern match as well. And then I like to do as much research as I can on, based on that, on what is likely to be a fit, and then only approach really, I now when I'm fundraising for my current company, I do not go out and talk to 50 companies. It's so time consuming. I'll go and try and talk to 5 that I think are really, really qualified. So there's, I might start with a list of 50, but I'll narrow it down just through my own research and then hit those 5. And then I like to get warm intros from someone they trust.
I'll just touch on 2 things that you said there that really resonate and draw a parallel to how we approach fundraising. Is that top 50 list. That's one of those things that we really focus on is, okay, who are the 50 best conversations that we need to go have? And then narrowing that down into that first 5 and putting a lot of time and effort and energy into, as you said, researching that first 5. What are they donating to? What's their philanthropic values? Why are they, pursuing this particular cause or this particular societal problem? So I love that from your industry, you also take a very similar approach. And we've all tried the spray and pray approach as well,
Yep.
in fundraising, where we've got this massive list and let's just pick up the phone and knock on every door, send them a piece of direct mail or whatever it may be. And when we know that that's not as fruitful as having that warm introduction, value alignment. So I think that's really great advice that resonates and draws a nice parallel to many of us on the call.
Whenever I advise first-time entrepreneurs and there's this like mentality, oh, we'll just take a Wednesday night and build a deck. And then I go, yeah. I built decks and it takes me 6 months, and it's not the deck building. It's all the research and the preparation to build the story. And they go, yes. They look completely deflated because they're like, what, 6 months? No, we need money like now.
Tomorrow.
Yesterday. And then again, when I first started, I used an investment banker to kind of like manage that process. And I kind of learned a lot of stuff from that because these guys raise money for a living. So they just know a lot about it. But then as I kind of started doing it on my own, I realized, how much preparation goes into that meeting. So for me, like the meeting is a really big milestone.
But Matej, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it, and was a wonderful discussion.
Thank you.
So thanks everybody for participating, listening to that discussion. I hope it was really valuable. I hope you gained some insights. I thought it would be a very interesting sort of parallel to our industry of fundraising and what's another industry doing in terms of how they raise capital and some of the techniques that they use. And there's a lot of great parallels that Matej and I hadn't discussed before this call, but just naturally came about. So as I talked about in the beginning of our call, there's 7 key elements for transformational fundraising. And those 7 key elements are that transformational vision. That's the first element. It's the first key to successfully fundraising. And it's really critical because everything hinges on that. Everything hinges around what's your vision. When you go talk to a donor, they're going to want to understand how are you going to change the world. That's really what they're trying to understand. They have the resources and you have the talent, you have the experience on how to create that better world scenario. So that's where they're really interested in understanding what's your vision. And that vision really is the foundation of all other elements in fundraising. If you're not clear on where you're going, the problem that you're solving, it's really difficult to raise funds. And so there are some really key elements to a transformational vision. And if anybody's thinking about large scale fundraising, capital campaigns, major gift fundraising, the vision, as I articulated, is the foundational element. We love to use a metaphor of capital campaigns or mountain climbs. They're these big endeavors. We need to raise a lot of money. They're very difficult. And we use different phases to think about how do we climb this mountain? How do we get from the bottom to the top? And the first phase is all about what's the vision? What are we trying to do? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? If we're going to go to this Herculean effort of solving a problem, is it the right problem to solve? Do we have the right solution? Will our solution actually solve the problem? Those are some of the really critical elements that we have to answer before we can go talk to anybody else. Matej was talking about how he crafts that initial pitch deck or that conversation, and he spends a lot of time thinking about that before he goes and talks to anyone. As a CEO, to say that I spend the majority of my time outside of the business, well, that's pretty profound. It's not a big company. So to say the key leader is thinking about strategy a lot of the time is quite profound. Every successful fundraising charity, every successful client that we work with has a very clear vision. Here's how we want to transform the world, because donors don't want to invest in mediocrity or confusion. They want you to be very clear about how am I changing the world? And they want you to be able to articulate that to them in a way that they understand. Some of the questions that we ask ourselves is, what's the problem that I'm trying to solve? Ultimately, what am I trying to fix? How do I know that that's a really big problem? What gives me an indication, whether it's symptoms, when this occurs, then that happens, it's implications. When this problem occurs, then all of these bad things follow. And it's really trying to understand what's the problem. How can I articulate to a potential donor that this is a problem and it's a problem that matters? What's the context behind it? The other thing, that people struggle with around this kind of work is visioning is about where do you want to go? It's not about where the world's going to take us. It's not about what could happen or maybe the organization will go this way or that way. It's all about where do you want to go and what does it look like when we get there? A transformational vision has these 4 key elements. It's got to be compelling, inspirational, impactful, and urgent. Compelling is all about generating that interest. If my vision isn't, if I don't share it in a compelling way, if I don't really get your attention right away, well, you're not going to pay attention. And therefore, my vision really doesn't land well and you're not excited. And so it's thinking also in framing your vision in a way that resonates with a donor. How do they think about this problem? And so it's not to say to change your vision, but one of our clients is working on a growth vision. We want to make our organization bigger. We want to geographically expand. And what we're working with them on is the fact that that may not be exciting to the donor. They may not care that you want to expand. Or what they care about is, are we solving more of the problem? Are we getting to the solution faster? By making your organization bigger, are you serving more people? Are you helping more people? That's the way that they think about the problem. And so that's what makes it compelling to them, not the fact we want to grow our organization. It's more about the people that we serve is what's important to them. Inspirational is that hope. So if we're going to raise a whole lot of money, we're going to solve the problem, right? That's the big question. Not we're going to raise a lot of money and we'll make it kind of better. We'll make it a little bit better. That's not very inspirational. What we need to think about when we think about our vision and our problem and our solution, is this inspirational? Are we truly through this solution solving the problem? And can donors feel that hope that we are creating a better world? We are making things better. The other thing to pay attention to is impact. What's the impact of not solving the problem? Well, it's going to harm a lot of people, or it's only going to harm a few people, but it's going to harm them deeply. And then the inverse, the positive of that is, what's the impact of the solution? Well, this could change lots of people's lives, or this will, have a moderate impact on lots of people, or this won't help that many people, but it'll save their life. So understanding what is the impact of the problem, and then what's the impact of the solution. And, that golden kind of quadrant that we want to make it into is that upper right quadrant where we're helping a lot of people and we're truly changing their life or saving their life. That's the best quadrant that we can hope to be in. But it should be authentic. Let's not make up what the impact is. Let's make sure that it's authentic. The other thing that's critical in your vision is, where's the urgency? Of all the things that we could solve, of all the problems that are facing our society, why is this the one that we have to focus on? What makes this urgent? Why do we need to do this now? Why do you need the funds to actually solve this problem tomorrow? That's a really critical piece. Coming back to that concept of vision, what we really encourage our clients to do, and it's that difficult part about visioning, is not to distill their vision. The clients that we see that have a transformational vision get transformational gifts. And that might sound a little kind of airy, but it's absolutely true. The ones that dream bold and the ones that are pursuing these bold solutions to really change the world and to think about things differently are the ones who are able to raise transformational gifts. Big visions get big gifts. If you've got a vision to change the world and you can find that value alignment with somebody who truly cares about the problem that you're trying to solve, there's somebody out there. One of my mentors has always said, somebody woke up today with the resources that you need to solve your problem. There's somebody who's got a lot of money out there that cares about the thing that you're trying to solve, and you just haven't told them what your big vision is yet. And we've seen many clients experience that even with their own donors. We never shared our whole vision. We didn't really tell them exactly what we were trying to do because we thought it was too audacious. We thought, how could we ever accomplish this? And once they expressed that entire vision to their donor, the donor said, I'm in. And here's a gift that is 10 times bigger than I've ever given you, because now I understand the full extent of what you're trying to accomplish. I understand where we're going together. I understand what we're trying to achieve as donor and as organization. And so when we think again about large scale fundraising, so this could be a capital campaign, a programmatic campaign, or even just major gift fundraising, it really truly does start with your vision. If you can get very clear about how you want to transform the world, and you understand what are the problems that we're trying to solve and the solutions that we have to solve those problems, that is the first step in raising major gifts and large scale fundraising, is making sure that you've got your vision figured out. Once you move from that, or once you've built on that foundation, you can successfully move through all the other steps about how do we actually run a fundraising campaign that's large scale. But it really is the foundation of a transformational vision. How do we want to positively change the world? Next steps is, of course, if you've got something that you want to talk about, if there's a strategy that you want to review with us, feel free to scan on the right. Happy to do any sort of free strategy session if you've got something that you want to talk about. We also offer a free campaign readiness scorecard to determine how ready is your organization to run large-scale fundraising. It's a 20-question kind of quiz. From that quiz, you get a customized PDF all about your readiness as an organization. If you have any trouble with those QR codes, they're also on our website. So if you wanted to take that assessment, that also exists on our website. So for many of you that I haven't met before, I just wanted to say thank you for coming today. Appreciate you giving up some of your time. I hope it was really valuable. And we will be doing another webinar next month. We're just finalizing our guest. It'll be around our signature method of fundraising. So it'll probably be focused around leadership or vision or storytelling. If you wanted to learn more about fundraising storytelling, feel free to go back to our previous webinar that we did with Will Greenblatt. Will's a professional speaking coach and pitching coach. And so Will and I did a webinar in August of last year, all about how do you tell great stories. So that's available on our YouTube channel, or if for some reason you can't find it, please feel free to reach out to us. That's another free resource that we're happy to offer. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time today. Great to meet some of the new faces, and feel free to stay in touch.